As Great Britain responds to a terror attack and braces for another, U.S. Special Operations Forces targeted an al-Qaeda compound in Yemen earlier today. More about that in a moment. But first, our colleague Brett Baer takes us inside the war on terror as it's being fought by Saudi forces in Yemen.
Deep inside a Saudi airbase on the outskirts of Riyadh, Saudi officers run an operation more than 720 miles away. This is the command center for the Saudi military effort against the Houthi rebel militias in Yemen, their neighbor to the south. It's seen here as a serious threat to the kingdom because the Houthis are backed and funded by Saudi Arabia's #1 enemy, Iran.
The Houthis are a radical militia that's allied with Hezbollah and with Iran. They are funded by the Iranians, they are armed by the Iranians. The missiles that come across the border from Yemen into Saudi Arabia and strike at our towns and cities are Iranian-made.
So it's an existential threat, essentially, to the kingdom.
Absolutely. We cannot have Iran involved in Yemen. Yemen is a strategically important country, 28 million people on our doorstep, and sits at the entrance of one of the world's most critical waterways, the Bab el-Mandeb, which also connects to another critical waterway, which is the Suez Canal.
It's about 2 hours by Royal Saudi Air Force prop plane from Riyadh to the southern border with Yemen. We're heading to the town of Narjan, where in recent days the Saudis have used artillery fire to repel Houthi militia attacks on watchtowers along the border. Saudi artillery positions dot the rocky border landscape, and the commander of this brigade says the Houthis have been active.
Houthi, they are attacking the civilian people, they are attacking the school, hospital. Those kind of hostile acts, it will cause loss of life, injury, loss of material in our infrastructure.
But the battle is not only being waged along this border. Since March 2015, when the Houthis forcibly took control after Yemen's then-president Abd Mansour Hadi resigned and the transition government wobbled, the Saudis and the Emiratis took action, bombing Houthi positions inside Yemen and putting in troops to control key areas in an effort to reinstate Hadi or to form a new government.
Our job was to respond to the request by the legitimate government to free Yemen from takeover by a militia. We will not allow Yemen to be taken over by a militia.
What's needed is to respect a constitutional process that can resolve some of these differences peacefully.
The Obama administration never fully approved of or supported the Saudis' efforts against the Houthis, and support dwindled even further at the end of President Obama's term. Many experts believe that protecting his legacy Iran nuclear deal may have heavily factored into that policy move, as it had in other Obama decisions in the Middle East. But now, under President Trump, the U.S. is dancing to a different beat. A new U.S. relationship with the kingdom, affirmed at last weekend's summit. Now the Saudi-led operations are fully U.S.-backed, trying to bring stability to Yemen, but the U.S. has its own fight in that country. As the Saudis are manning the artillery positions here along the border against the Houthis, further inside Yemen, earlier today, U.S. Navy SEALs raided an al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula compound, backed by significant U.S. air power. AQAP is believed to be the terror group most likely to attack the U.S. They've tried the most. CENTCOM says 7 AQAP terrorists were killed in that raid. But it's a significant threat. So much so, since President Trump has been in office, there have been 80 airstrikes against AQAP positions inside Yemen. Yemen is a country of 27 million. Years of war, Houthi militia control, and overall instability, though, has taken its toll. The UN estimates that 19 of the 27 million need some sort of aid, and the UN Secretary General says Yemen is facing a tragedy, with a child under 5 dying of preventable causes every 10 minutes on average. Stats that make aid relief from around the world critical. The biggest contributor of medical and food aid to Yemen, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, with caravans of trucks packed with supplies. But even that can be difficult.
The Houthis steal humanitarian supplies that come into the port of Hodeidah and sell it in order to fund their war machine, thereby denying it to the people who need it most. It is a direct result of the Houthis stealing the aid or laying siege on the towns and villages and stopping aid from coming in. We had to, in some cases, drop humanitarian assistance from planes. The Houthis are under tremendous pressure, both militarily as well as politically, as well as economically, and we believe that we're beginning to enter the final phase of this conflict.
Which brings us back to the command center in Riyadh, a watchful eye hundreds of miles away, organizing a conflict the Saudis say they hope to end soon. As President Trump continues his foreign trip through Europe, the Saudis here are still relishing in the shift in tone, the shift in policy, the shift in relationship with the U.S. And a new partnership over Yemen is a big part of that equation. James, back to you in the studio in Washington.
Our Brett Baer reporting from the Mideast.